Hi, it's Mitch from SportsChatPlace.com, along here with Ron Romanelli. Ready for Week 1, Thursday action of college football. We're going to go through some games, give you some analysis and picks. Of course, we give out free picks on every game every day at SportsChatPlace.com. Our best bets are underneath the premium pick tab at Sports Chat Place. And of course, if you're looking to bet these games, just go to the betting odds page, click on any of the books there. You can use the drop down, find your state, and there's great sportsbook offers when you click on that. They get you to sign up. Of course, you could watch. You can check those out anyway. But anyways, Ron, Week 0 in the books, just 4 games in Week 0. I think a lot of people kind of rush the gun, and I think a lot of those games, for me personally, were games I wouldn't bet on a normal college football Saturday. Did you think we saw anything that we could take with us there, though, as far as like the pace of the games, any different nuances to games? There's always rule changes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was definitely some teams that overachieved and some teams that definitely underperformed. A team like Nebraska definitely was a clunker of a performance from them. But I do think that the teams were a lot more, or at least less rusty than they were last season. All these teams got spring practices this year. Last year they didn't get that because of COVID. So I think that you're going to see a lot less of rust from these college football teams, even though they have a lot of new players from transfers and signees. I thought Week 0 wasn't as sloppy as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think it wasn't as sloppy as we thought it was going to be, but I think we saw, I think we saw some things that can help us. I think we saw a lot of things that it was just, it's Week 0. But at the same time, so we go to Week 1. For me, this is the official open of college football. And we have a really nice slate of games here Thursday night. Traditionally, there's been some really great Thursday night opening nights. There's been some real clunker Thursday night. This one seems like just a nice little slate of, there's a lot of smaller games in there, the FIUs versus long LIUs and stuff, which we're not going to really touch on. We have those all covered at sportschatplace.com, free picks, predictions on every one of these games every single day. We're just going to stick to some of the main games. I know that you have your site set on. So let's just get right into the action. We've got Temple against Rutgers. This is the first game of the night. It's got a 6:30 p.m. Eastern time start. Currently, Rutgers laying 14.5 and the total set at 52. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, this is a Temple team. They lost their starting quarterback, Anthony Russo, to Michigan State. They don't return too many players, only 8 offensive starters and 6 defensive starters, and none of those players are quarterbacks this team. And this was only a team, they only scored 20 points per game last year. I think Rutgers is definitely going to set the tempo in this one and show out their strong defense. I think this is going to be a good year for Rutgers in the Big Ten defensively, but offensively, it might not be the strongest, especially you look at their quarterback and wide receivers on paper. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think that Rutgers is going to separate themselves as the game moves on. So I'm leaning towards Rutgers laying the points, but I'd like to take the under 52. I just think that's far too steep of a total.
Of course, Rutgers, Greg Schiano is a defensive coach all the way. Last time he was at Rutgers, it was a 5-year building program. You can't call it rebuilding because they had nowhere to build back to. But, it was a 5-year rebuild. He hit it on the number, I think, this time around. Looks to be, at least from what we saw, a little bit quicker to get there this time around. And, of course, Temple, like you said, pretty much depleted. Rutgers, I believe, returns 20 starters this year from last year's team. We go to the next game on the slate that you're looking at, and that would be UCF and Boise. This is a real interesting matchup. These are 2 teams, non-Power 5 conference teams, that have been in the mix for postseason bowl berth, BCS bowl berth, over the last several years, and their names have been in the mix. Of course, UCF, it's a coaching change there. Josh Heupel off to Tennessee. Gus Malzahn comes over from Auburn, and at Boise, well, these guys just continue to churn them out as Hartline gone to Auburn, taking over Malzahn's job. But this should be a interesting matchup because both these teams can't afford to lose this game, even though it's the first game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the best games in Week 1, in my opinion. Even though it's on Thursday night, you got 2 teams at the bounce house, and just like UCF, Boise State has a new head coach, Andy Avalos. He's been in their program for years, a student athlete and a coordinator, assistant coach. So UCF, they're going to return their star quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. This was an offensive unit that scored 40-plus points per game last year. And although Boise State does return their quarterback, Hank Bachmeier, and a lot of their offensive pieces, I'm just not sure they're going to be able to go score for score in this whole game with UCF. I mean, it's not an easy atmosphere to play in at the bounce house with the fans going to be packed there. And that Orlando heat and the humidity can get to you in a jiffy, especially as the team plays at Boise, in Idaho is, not the same thing, even though it can get hot there too as well. But I'm going to take UCF. I don't think it's a pretty one if you're laying the points. Definitely not my favorite game on the board, but I do think the Golden Knights eventually cover this game in the end.
Yeah, looking at about 82 degrees today at UCF. I think one of the things that we know is that Boise's not a novelty act anymore, and they simply just reload. But UCF last year didn't quite look like some of the UCF teams of the past, and I thought that's why the Heupel hiring at Tennessee was a little bit surprising in my book. But I think this is one of those games, like you said, we're going to learn a lot about both these teams. A loss here isn't going to knock them out from winning their conference, but it will knock them out from that group of five into a BCS Bowl discussion for sure. We'll move on to the next game that I know you really like, and that one is going to be the App State versus East Carolina matchup. This is an interesting one because App State has a defense that, in my book, is as good as any of the Power 5 conference defense. Maybe they're not Alabama or something like that, or Ohio State, but they are at least as good as the middle rung teams in those conferences, if not better. And but some questions here on offense. A lot of guys to replace, but App State's always been one of those teams. Bend but don't break. Even against the big boys, they've done that where they the other team will get inside the 10 and it's an impenetrable fortress at that point. What are you thinking here in this one?
Yeah, I mean, App State, they're the premier football program in that Sun Belt Conference, and I do think they're going to have another great year defensively, one of the better teams in terms of defensive efficiency. ECU, though, on the other side, this is an improved team on both sides of the ball, in my opinion. I like what Coach Mike Houston's been doing in the rebuild there at ECU, and I think this year they're going to be ready to take that next step. I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be tight. I do see App State winning this one in the end, but 10.5 points, I see it at some books. That's just too many points for me. I'm going to take East Carolina and the points there. I think it's going to be a one touchdown or less kind of game.
I believe East Carolina backdoored it against Central Florida last year, and I believe they backdoored it against Cincinnati as well in similar type matchups, where it seems like we have an obvious winner, but the back door is always open, especially if you don't play offense like App State doesn't seem to have the ability to do this season. We move to the last game you want to go over, and that one's going to be the Ohio State at Minnesota game. Of course, the Buckeyes' expectations just through the roof for this team, losing their starting quarterback in Justin Fields, losing their running back in Sermon. So a big chunk of the offense, leaving the Buckeyes. But Ryan Day, I've been watching college football my entire life, and I've been watching Ohio State since Woody Hayes was the coach, so I've seen all that, and this is the best Ohio State coach they've had since Woody Hayes. He is tremendous. This guy, as a Miami fan, we don't generally like Ohio State, but I have to say Ryan Day takes this thing. He is a coach. This guy is a great football coach. And, on the other side of it, PJ Fleck, he's a motivation guy, row the boat guy. He appears to be a little bit outmanned in this game, but Ohio State has Oregon next week at home. How much do they show? And we've seen Ohio State run up some big leads under Ryan Day, only to get backdoored in the second half. We saw it against Penn State. We've seen it other times as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is an Ohio State team. I think you're going to see them score 40 or more points in almost every game this season. I mean, their offense looks to be just as good as we've seen in recent years. And the same goes for the Minnesota's defense on the other side. It does not look too sharp. They weren't good defensively last season. They returned a lot of their guys from last year's team, but again, not a good defense last year. So, I see a team total right now, Ohio State 38.5. I'd take the over on that one. I'd be pretty surprised to see Ohio State score less than 40. And then on the other side, though, Minnesota does return 10 offensive starters, including their quarterback and Tanner Morgan. I do expect them to be competent on offense. I think they put in 2 to 3 touchdowns as well. So I'm looking at this total at 63 right now. I'm going to take the over Ohio State, Minnesota. I'll also take the team total over for Ohio State. I could see like a 45-21 kind of game in Ohio State's favor, but I don't want to lay 14 points on the road. Like Mitch mentioned, a look-ahead spot could be, even in week 1, it could be a look-ahead spot with Oregon on deck.
Super trappy. And, of course, the public probably going to be flocking to the Buckeyes here as well. And the other thing that, we have, the thing about this one, I think this one has 28-18, 38-28, type game where it's 38-21 and they score a late touchdown or something, right? We've seen it a million times, and then always are still surprised when it happens for some reason. But I can see this is one of those spots. So I'm staying away from this one. I originally I was for Ohio. Originally I thought Ohio State, but I'm going to stay away. But anyways, Ron, awesome. There's a lot of games out there, and of course we have them all covered at sportschatplace.com. Our best bets are over at sportschatplace.com underneath the premium picks tab. Both Ron and I and some of the best handicappers in the world, and some of the guys are already off to hot starts to the college football season. I believe Ron's 1-0 in his college football premium to start. I didn't do any week 0 games. I would have been 3-1. My free picks I gave out. But anyways, we've got a lot of college football covering. Of course, we started as a college football site, so we'll continue to hammer home and be the source for college football all season long. We look forward to seeing Ron tomorrow here with picks for Friday's game. I'll do the same format with him, actually. He did them last week by himself, but I'll tell you what, I had a really nice time doing it with him here, and I had a lot of fun. So thanks, Ron, and thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's make it a winner. Score big.